All of the conspiracy theories that you've ever heard about one world government, about the UN takeover of the world, all of those conspiracies have now been laid to rest. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. It's all published. The UN-funded Commission on Global Governance began meeting in 1992 in earnest and met for 4 years, and last fall released their final report. It is entitled Our Global Neighborhood.
That will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. The world can therefore seize this opportunity to fulfill the long-held promise of a new world order. We can find meaning and reward by serving some higher purpose than ourselves, a shining purpose, the illumination of 1,000 points of light. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN.
Our society has continued to become more and more naive, and we are still a place where anybody has a chance to make it through misleading and dishonest practices, if they try. If that wasn't true, then somebody named Barack Hussein Obama from Kenya, from Africa, would not be elected president of the United States.
But Kissinger says they are preparing Obama to create this new world order. Now, I have a lot of stock in what Kissinger says because he's a member of this secret society.
Assalamu alaikum. We are no longer a Christian nation.
We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation.
Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay, that eating shellfish is an abomination? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application?
The Holy Quran tells us, the Holy Quran teaches that, the Holy Quran tells us, and the Holy Quran also says,
You know, one of the points I want to make is that if you actually took the number of Muslims, Americans, we'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
the United States has been enriched by Muslim Americans. Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. We will convey our deep appreciation for the Islamic faith, which has done so much over the centuries to shape the world. But my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed. That experience guides my conviction.
You're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith.
He did bow to the Muslim king, while he did not do it to the British Queen of England. And by bowing, he showed the world that I am subservient. I do bow down to you as a Muslim king, something no other president has done with Saudi Arabia. The Saudi king is his peer. He is not his subordinate in order to bow for him. And this is exactly what Obama did. Usually it is out of respect that someone would nod his head when bowing to royalty, and the ladies will give curtsy. But Obama went beyond what is required as a head of state and bowed to the Saudi king, and that's unacceptable. It sent the wrong symbol.
When you say it sends the wrong signal, what signal do you think it sends?
It sent a message that Islam is superior to any other master or king or president in the world, that an American president bowed to a Muslim king. It also sent a message that terrorism and jihadism is giving Islam the respect it should have on the world stage, to the point that it made an American president, for the first time in history, bow to a Muslim king.
I also know civilization's debt to Islam. It was Islam that carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment, that developed the order of algebra, our magnetic compass and tools of navigation, our mastery of pens and printing, our understanding of how disease spreads and how it can be healed. Islamic culture has given us majestic arches and soaring spires, timeless poetry and cherished music, elegant calligraphy, and places of peaceful contemplation. I would like to speak directly to the people and leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Their great and celebrated culture. Over many centuries, your art, your music, literature, and innovation have made the world a better and more beautiful place. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes.
What he's doing is he has his legacy, by his own determination, is to build up Iran and introduce it into the community of nations when it is worse than Nazi Germany, because Hitler hid the final solution. He didn't shout it from the rooftops.
Wait a minute, you're accusing,
Probably, maybe from the beginning, there has never been a greater enemy to Israel than Barack Obama. It's incredible the way he treats them, the way he's speaking to them. I think he treats our known enemies much better. How are you supporting this man? He's the worst thing that has ever happened to Israel. Now, what's going to happen is, the way it's going, Iran will have a nuclear weapon. As soon as that happens, and it's very close, as soon as that happens, it's a whole new ballgame.
Mike Huckabee is standing by his controversial comments, effectively equating Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler. Quote, marching Israelis to the door of the oven.
Under the Obama nuclear deal, over $100 billion will flow to Iran. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, so much of that money will end up in the hands of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and other radical Islamic terrorists. And if this deal goes through, the Obama administration will become quite literally the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. Now, President Obama didn't dispute that. He didn't point to any other entity on earth that would send more money to radical Islamic terrorism. He didn't dispute that billions of dollars in the control of the American government will be used to fund jihadists who will take that money and murder Americans, murder Israelis, murder Europeans.
If Franklin Roosevelt delivered a nuclear weapon to Hitler and $150 billion in ballistic missiles to carry on terrorist attacks against America and the West, what would you call Roosevelt? Obama, you have to say this man is a Jew hater. He doesn't really care if Israel is absolutely wiped off the face of the earth. I don't care what he says. I don't care how much Iron Dome he delivers.
We can look back to Bolshevik Russia. We can see the takeover by the Bolsheviks talking about the people's revolution, talking about the positive change. And Lenin came in, and then Stalin. The fact is that over 40 million Russians between 1925 and 1940. Good Russians, people who were Christians, people who had their own businesses, people who were educated. They were exterminated because they had their own business, because they were educated, because they believed in God's law. We can look over at Germany. Germany was in a very, very terrible economic situation, and this very charismatic leader called Adolf Hitler comes in. He makes the roads good, and he promises a better life for the people. And within 10 years, you see a completely nationalized, centralized, dictatorial situation where millions and millions of people were exterminated. And then we can go to Maoist China. Mao came in, he promised change, he promised a better life, and within 5 years, 60 million Chinese were exterminated. They don't teach that. They don't teach that in the schools these days, and it wasn't that long ago. And I pray to God that this will not happen in the United States. And the way it won't happen is if you and your friends and all of us together take action to say no. This country is too precious. It's too wonderful. It's too good of a place to lay down as a victim.
He was our idol. He was a demigod.
People generally forget the mistakes of the past. Citizens who are caught up in Hitler's Nazi Germany hardly notice the gradual development of extremism, mainly due to high emotions and dazzling propaganda. But history often repeats itself. Fema plastic coffins, detention centres, armoured checkpoints and armoured military vehicles for civil purposes are well-documented facts. For the United States military claims stores of guillotines located in Fort Lewis military facility. The latest revelation of Obamacare sanctions death by guillotine, code ICD 9E978. However, Obama was only following...
Obamacare is full of endless surprises. Yeah, you want to go Google Obamacare ICD-9. Yeah, that's one of the many hidden treasures within Obamacare. And what ICD-9 is all about, it's the code that confirms execution by beheading. Yeah, that's within Obamacare. That shouldn't come as any kind of a big surprise to anyone, considering that that's what they do in that part of the world. You know, they cut people's heads off. And Obama is from that part of the world. And that's what he's got built into Obamacare.
The guillotines show that Obamacare is not about American health care. It's about global health care. But it's not really health care. They've got to have some kind of a political structure so as to be able to kill anybody they want to in any nation on earth. They got to get every person on the planet involved, and health care is the best idea that they came up with because everybody's going to need health care sooner or later. So the guillotines are in there, and we know that the guillotines is implemented by the World Health Organization, which is international office of the United Nations. So this proves doubly that Obamacare has nothing to do about American health care. It has to do about global health care.
They call it a residential center, but it looks a hell of a lot more like a prison to me. Double fences, floodlights, barbed wire to keep people from getting out, and at the main entrance, railroad tracks, just like Nazi Germany.
It's hundreds of thousands, plastic coffins.
So each one of those is a separate coffin stacked on top. There's probably, what, 20 to 25 per stack. And how many stacks? Literally hundreds of them.
And you can fit 4 dead bodies per plastic coffin. It's basically a giant body bag.
Tens of thousands of coffins. Officially, they're plastic grave liners. The bodies would pile up, the military would pile in, and the concentration camp gates would open. So you're telling me there isn't one FEMA camp of these in the United States right now?
There are not.
Why is it in that bill?
What is exactly in the bill? And
Which talks about building FEMA camps, doesn't it? That particular bill that we're talking about? What's the bill number? 6 FEMA camps to be built within the United States. How can a bill state that there'll be 6 FEMA camps built in the United States, and then I'm being told there are none?
I think those are locations for if there's a disaster like in Katrina. I think that's what it is. It's not any kind of a concentration camp or anything to round up citizens.
Well, we have films of children playing on the swings and the slides and stuff, and this one technically falls under Homeland Security.
Well, I don't know. You know, I haven't been there, and I don't know who the children are, and the children are probably very happy.
Where have we heard that before?
Hitler was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939. He was nominated by Brandt, a member of the Swedish Parliament. The man was a dedicated anti-fascist, and he made the nomination
on the job, and he's now a Nobel laureate. In a ceremony at Oslo City Hall, President Barack Obama joined the exalted company of Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa. He was cited for re-engaging America in global diplomacy.
It's the answer spoken by young and old, rich and poor, rich and poor, rich and poor.
And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN.
Barack Obama is the first president to chair the UN Security Council. That by chairing that meeting, which is unconstitutional and against the law, Barack Obama is literally in charge of all the armies that are associated with the United Nations. Consider that.
We know the president can refuse to defend the constitutionality of a statute, even one that he signs into law. Mr. Speaker, that is a lot of power. What are we to do when that amount of power is not enough?
A man trying to come to terms, it seems, with the constitutional reality that, well, he can only have 2 terms.
I love my work, but under our Constitution, I cannot run again. I can't run again. I actually think I'm a pretty good president. I think if I ran, I could win, but I can't.
Well, I'm a little confused about where the laughter came and where the support really was. But first, I'm a little disturbed that our president found it necessary to say 3 times that he can't run again. But his most frightening statement today, his claim that he could win a 3rd term. Why is it so frightening? Because it's so much closer to the truth than anything else he said today.
And for the president to come down and use this argument he's used that basically, look, if you don't change the law, I have a right to break the law, what's he going to do next? Is he going to say, I want a 3rd term, and if Congress and the American people don't change the law, I'm going to declare martial law and just use that as a justification?
Well, we see Barack Hussein Obama may be getting his 3rd term. Obama would become the first president since Franklin D. Roosevelt to seek a 3rd term, and don't think this power-hungry dictator won't try this, even though this bastard has failed miserably. Since Hillary is damaged goods,
You okay? Keep talking, you handle it, we're not going anywhere.
Okay, here we are.
Keep talking, man, keep talking.
Okay, we'll keep talking.
maybe the Democrats and these flaming liberals just may try this. He has no intention on trying to stop the debt because that's not his what he came in office to do. He came in office to help destroy America, help destroy the dollar, and he's doing a fine job at doing that. And this idiot wants to get him for a third term. This man may be suicidal. It's up to us, the people, to get Barack Obama out of office because we have no representation in this country. And any idiot who's advocating a third term for Barack Obama needs to be locked up and institutionalized.
We could get a third Obama term after all.
You think I'm joking? As I watch this parade of this emissary, this ambassador from hell himself called Barack Hussein Obama, and is trying to bring deception all over the world. And all of the world was watching as Hitler was amassing his power and talking about how he was going to change the world and talking about the things he was going to do about Germany and making her the greatest race and the greatest people that there ever was. And yet no one did a thing. But they watched this man build and amass this power of world domination. And the world that should have been stood by and did nothing. And yet he spoke. And when Hitler stood, the people would come. And you can see, if you go back and look at some of the old newsreels of Hitler's speeches, you'll see the people were standing there in awe. Hail Hitler, they would say. You could see the look on their faces as if they were in some sort of trance. And this man spoke with eloquence. This man spoke with power. This man spoke with determination. And every German fell down at his feet and worshiped him. His idea and design was to take charge of the world. Now I know you see where I'm going with this. And I know you see what's happening. All Barack Hussein Obama needs is a mustache. That's all he needs, and an outstretched right arm. And we are repeating history all over again.
You look at that man on your screen, Barack Obama. That is a would-be dictator. That is the elite empowering him. You want to see a Stalin or a Hitler? You are looking at the next Adolf Hitler. You are looking at the next Joseph Stalin. He has the spirit of wicked power. He has a spirit of deception. He is highest caliber evil. You know, my father, he said, I recognized where Obama was in his New World Order speech he gave in Berlin because I've been there several times, and he'd come over to my house when he was last there 6 months ago and showed me all these photos of the Pergamon Gate, of the museum that's right there at the Pergamon Gate where the Nazis had the Pergamon Gate, there where Obama gave his speech. And people pointed out that's where Hitler gave his most important speeches, was where Obama was standing. Here he is standing. He chooses where Hitler spoke. Just a few feet away from him is the window and the famous things when Hitler was elected, waving at everybody. Now, right in that building behind him is the Germans, before World War I, went to Babylon, just south of Baghdad today, 30 miles south there. They went to Babylon, and they dug up the turquoise blue gates of Babylon and the Pergamon Gate, and inside was the seat of Satan in Babylonian, that they worship Satan. That's where that comes from in the Bible. And the seat of Satan, Hitler believed it gave him power, and they built a big concrete dome over it so the air raids couldn't destroy it. You can't make this up. My neck holds up, and he started reading Revelations to me, and he was talking about the Antichrist. It says will speak from the Pergamon Gate and the seat of Satan. And so that's why Hitler spoke there. It's just sick. It's totally sick.
In jeder Stunde, an jedem Tag, nur zu denken an Deutschland, an Volk und an Reich, an unsere deutsche Nation. Unser deutsches Volk siegt ein! Siegt ein! So wie ich in dieses Amt eintrat, so will ich dann gehen. Ich tat es nicht Gehalt und nicht Lohn. Ich tat es deiner selbst wegen.
You might ask, how could a Christian nation, almost 100% Catholic, to elect a monster like Hitler? The truth is, at the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician.
And we've seen Obama really come into his own, really grow into maturity as a dictator. He said many times at the beginning of the year that he was just the president, that we had divided powers. He said 22 times that he didn't have the authority to just make law. But by the end of the year, he was telling his friends, I changed the law for you.
What you're not paying attention to is the fact that I just took an action to change the law, change the law, change the law. If Congress won't act soon to protect future generations, I will. I will direct my cabinet to come up with executive actions we can take now and in the future.
So dictatorship didn't happen overnight. It took 5 years, gradually, little by little, to escalate up to a dictatorship.
Absolute power, which is as corrupt as it ever gets. In studying dictatorships, which I've done since I'm about 18 years old, I've never heard a dictator say he's doing anything illegally. Never. Even Hitler said that everything he did was within the law. Did you know that? I mean, our National Action Network president, Barack Hussein Obama, said he's going to act within the law. Mussolini said he was acting within the law when he violated the law. Hitler said he was acting within the law when he needed some living space for the Germans, Lebensraum. He wasn't invading Czechoslovakia because he wanted to conquer Czechoslovakia. He said he had the legal right to engage in getting some living space for the German people. That's all. Everything's legal. Pol Pot did it legally.
Image that has folks talking. It's a picture of Adolf Hitler and the symbol of communism, a hammer and sickle. The words read, Comrade Obama.
Adolf Hitler was the president, was the head of the National Socialist Party in Germany. So there is a connection between President Obama's very well-documented leanings towards socialism.
Policy of essentially a one-world government point of view, where he is not as concerned about United States sovereignty. He's very willing to see the United States power flow into world organizations.
This is something we ought to be really, really troubled about, don't you think?
You are exactly right. It is one of the most profoundly troubling aspects of the Obama administration is the degree to which this is a lawless administration. We've never seen a president who picks and chooses the way this president does.
This is entirely lawless, and the fact that nobody is talking about this, the executive executes the laws. As you say, this is another example of Obama rewriting a law unilaterally, and nobody is complaining.
Hitler has often protested that his plans for conquest do not extend across the Atlantic Ocean, but his submarines and raiders prove otherwise. And so does the entire design of his new world order. For example, I have in my possession a secret map made in Germany by Hitler's government, by the planners of the new world order.
President Obama calling for a new world order.
Well, there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the United States.
In creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Georgia Republican Congressman Paul Brown says he fears President-elect Obama could establish a Marxist dictatorship. Brown said in an interview Monday, quote, "It may sound a bit crazy and off base, but he's the one who's proposed this national security force. That's exactly what Hitler did in Nazi Germany. It's exactly what the Soviet Union did. He's showing me signs of being Marxist." You have to remember that Adolf Hitler was elected in a democratic Germany, end quote, Paul Brown.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build.
This, as the president pledged to shape, quote, a new international order.
President Obama called for a new U.S. role on the world stage.
So we have to shape an international order that can meet the challenges of our generation. The international order we seek is one that can resolve the challenges of our times.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Lonely like a highway. He's living in a world and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but he knows he can fly away. Oh, he's got both feet on the ground and he's burning it down. Got our head in the clouds and he's not backing down. Oh, Obama's on fire. Oh, Obama's on fire. He's walking on fire. Oh, Obama's on fire. Come on, come on. Everybody says as he goes by, yes, they can see the flame that's in his eyes. Watch him as he's lighting up the night. Everybody knows that Michelle is his girl. Together they run the world. Oh, Obama's on fire. Oh, Obama's on fire.
This is a little frightening. And the title is Obama, First U.S. President to Chair UN Security Council. Some unprecedented news, folks. Never in the history of the United Nations has a U.S. president taken the chairmanship of the powerful UN Security Council. Perhaps it is because of what could arguably be a constitutional prohibition against doing so. Constitution be damned. Barack Hussein Obama has decided to put himself in the driver's seat.
Give an honor to God and our Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. Barack Obama. And our Lord and Savior, Barack Obama.
Kerry says it's just training soldiers for the realities of war. Critics say the Army is preparing for modern-day martial law.
You know, part of this is to demonstrate what the city does so that if it happens in real life, people will have some understanding of what's going to happen. This is something we constantly worry about. The threat is always there. You know, what happens in other regions of the world is important, but I think we have enough of a homegrown issue that all of this needs to be practiced.
This number.
Yeah, pretty much at that time, your Second Amendment, all your rights, First Amendment rights, pretty much everything is not at that moment just interrupted. Yeah.
So you said that martial law suspends their Second Amendment. So I'm not going to, but would you say we would take weapons from people?
Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah.
That's what they do. But I'm
yes, I wouldn't agree with that either. I'm just like, I live the Second Amendment. But
okay.
Essentially, during a moment of martial law, we've lost all control. Pretty much saying when the military moves in on your street, they are now saying you have no more rights. Pretty much you're going inside your house. That's like the worst case scenario. So I'm saying when the way they're
no, you're not going to go knocking on doors and be like, all right, I need a shotgun here. No. You're not going to like go up to each house and say.
Well, they did that in Katrina, is why I'm asking. And if we're talking about shit hitting the fan,
shit's about to start getting crazy, if you know what I mean.
I'm not going to do it, but
they're not going to do that necessarily. It's more or less like, hey, go in your house, shut up, stay there. That's
okay.
Because that reason they have martial law in place is it's for those situations, like you said, everything's already broken down. It's a last resort to change pretty much your last ditch effort.
Which I think is bullshit, but.
You're going to your
Yeah.
The exercise, which involved U.S. Marines from the 1st Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division, well, it took place on April 18th and revolved around assault support tactics training. The video shows Marines landing in a helicopter on a field next to a busy highway. Local citizens can be seen watching the exercise over a chain link fence while role players take part in the drill. One of the role players, you can see him right here, he tries to escape the compound and is chased down and handcuffed by an armed Marine. And you can even hear the role players shouting things out like, "Let me out!" Because, well, it looks like they are training to put Americans in internment camps. Why do the role players always shout things out like, "I'm a sovereign citizen, I have my rights," or "Don't take my guns"? I mean, that's the routine. That's what we're seeing from these drills. And why are they building mock cities like they did at Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia, where the street signs are clearly in English and they resemble an average American town? And don't forget, it was Alex Jones who went to a drill in California. This was several years ago, and he captured a video of the U.S. military processing American citizens into an internment camp. As the voice over the loudspeaker, well, you can hear him shouting, "We will not tolerate civil disobedience."
Attention, attention, attention. Remain calm. We will not tolerate civil disobedience.
Now, if this was practice for the Middle East, you'd think they'd say something like, "We will not tolerate civil disobedience" in Arabic. I mean, wouldn't they? So as you can see, these drills have been occurring for a very long time, but there's no doubt that they are accelerating at a rapid pace right now as the U.S. military, well, it looks like they are training for martial law.
I'm a sovereign citizen. I refuse to recognize you guys. Stop. I refuse to recognize you.
Okay. Now let's go to, and we've got other troops saying it, and we've got police saying, "What's the armored vehicle for?" It's for the patriots, it's for the veterans, it's for the constitutionalists. There's a massive gear up for martial law, and they won't call it martial law. They're training for it, but then saying they're not. Let's go to the clip from Indiana.
We didn't have the violence that we see today. The weaponry is totally different now than it was in the beginning of my career.
Not true.
Plus, you have a lot of people that are coming out of the military that have the ability and the knowledge to build IEDs and to defeat law enforcement techniques.
Take enemy fire and still try to address a threat without being feared of getting shot.
So I'm thinking that is totally appropriate in Iraq, but what kind of a situation in the U.S. would you see that happening?
I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons, a lot of ammunition. I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons.
You don't have that much time to take away Americans' guns, declare martial law, and put hardworking Americans in FEMA camps. If you're going to do that, you better get started. You better get started.
Politicians have traditionally hidden behind three things: the flag, the Bible, and children.
Why did Obama use children to sign 23 executive orders the month after the Sandy Hook hoax?
Because the owners of this country, I'm talking about the real owners now, the big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions.
Rothschild, Bauer or Bauer. 2. Bruce. 3. Cavendish, Kennedy. 4. De Medici. 5. Hanover. 6. Habsburg. 7. Krupp. 8. Planted Unit. 9. Rockefeller. 10. Romanov. 11. Sinclair, St. Clair. 12. Warburg, Del Banco. 13. Windsor, Saxe-Coburg.
Forget the politicians.
You know what I just find interesting is the degree to which this issue keeps on coming up, as if this was my decision.
They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big all the big media companies. So they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls.
Yesterday, President Obama signed an executive order claiming the right to incarcerate persons in the Guantanamo Bay military prison for the duration of their natural lives, even after acquittal. You heard that correctly, after acquittal. Following upon President Bush, President Obama has claimed the power to punish people even after a jury has found them not guilty. No Western government has ever claimed the power to do this. Not the King of England, not Hitler, not Stalin, not even the Russian and Chinese communists.
President Obama today proposed something new, something called prolonged detention, indefinite detention without trial. That's what this is. That's what President Obama proposed today. And it is stunning, particularly to hear President Obama claim the power to keep people in prison indefinitely with no charges against them, no conviction, no sentence, just imprisonment. It's particularly stunning to hear him make that claim in the middle of a speech.
None of this is going on. We're going under global treaties. Our borders are wide open. We're living in a globalist dictatorship. We're smart enough to try to politically take the country back. We're gearing up to defend ourselves as the military trains to attack us.
The American people just waged a peaceful revolution at the ballot box.
And a fair election.
Apparently that's a fair election. That's not what the left has in mind. They're not going to take this sitting down. They are now going to ratchet it up to the point where people are going to be in the streets more and more. You're going to see more of this violence, and unless there's a crackdown now in law and order, it's going to get worse. And President Trump needs to make that clear.
Larry, who should make a statement calming the waters here? Larry, first to you. Quick.
President Obama should do it himself, but he won't do it because he wants it to happen. But Donald Trump should make it clear that once he assumes office on January 20th, if this continues, there's going to be hell to pay. The law is going to be enforced.
Sergeant, who should make a comment to calm the waters here, Sergeant?
President Barack Obama should first do it. He should set the tone going into this, entering this election cycle. Okay. And then when President, and you better believe that President-elect Donald Trump is going to stop it. But at the same time, the states got to stand up, and the states got to say, hey, we're not going to allow you to destroy our cities. Right. And we're going to send in National Guard. Anytime you guys mobilize, we're going to mobilize. These are the same rioters that were involved in Black Lives Matter. These are all paid agitators. This is nothing new. This is the same thing that they've done. The 1969 riots in Berkeley, this same exact thing. These are all paid agitators. It's the same group of individuals. You had a lot of rioters out there that are protesting and don't even know what they're protesting about. And that just kind of feeds to the further narrative that when Hillary Clinton lost the election, that they were going to do everything they can to destroy Donald Trump. And so you can see that. I mean, this is all funded by George Soros.
Where they're destroying stores, where they're destroying cars. And Larry, I'd like your thoughts on this. You know, the critics have been calling out President Obama because also President-elect Trump inherited this mess of protests going on and 6 major race riots occurring just during President Obama's term, Larry, and you're even suing over that.
That's right. President Obama met with Donald Trump the other day, and he put on a good face, but it was a two-faced. As Kellyanne Conway said, he could quiet this down. He could tell people to be quiet. But in fact, this morning, he was complimenting the protesters, saying they had a right to protest. So don't be fooled by this facade in the White House right now. President Obama, I believe, and his co-conspirators at Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, they want to see this erupt because they're not satisfied with the election results. And in fact, they've stoked a potential civil war here.
When we are successful, and we will be, We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them.
And they're all white. Why are they all white?
I don't know. Isn't white a UN color?
Pretty impressive, a display of international military might. Thousands of men and women from several different countries all landed on Camp Pendleton's beaches today. It's all part of a multinational exercise called Dawn Blitz.
New at 5, 10 News reporter Joe Little was on the beach during that exercise and reveals why training alongside other countries has become part of the U.S. military's way of life.
You get to do what they really want. They do what they want. The ones who own this country, they do what they want. You know what your freedom of choice is in America? Paper or plastic. Everybody complains about politicians. Everybody says they suck. Well, where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from another reality. They come from American parents and American families, American homes, American schools, American churches, American businesses, and American universities, and they're elected by American citizens. This is the best we can do, folks. This is what we have to offer. It's what our system produces. Garbage in, garbage out. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to get selfish, ignorant leaders. And term limits ain't going to do you any good. You're just going to wind up with a brand new bunch of selfish, ignorant Americans. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe something else sucks around here, like the public. Why did you let them do this to you? Fuck hope. Fuck hope. Because if it's really just the fault of these politicians, then where are all the other bright people of conscience? Where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans ready to step in and save the nation and lead the way? We don't have people like that in this country. Everybody's at the mall, scratching his ass, picking his nose, taking his credit card out of his fanny pack and buying a pair of sneakers with lights in them. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things.
The integration of national economies into a global economy. That's here. That's done. And so the question is not whether or not there's going to be a international global economy. There is one.
Has the Federal Reserve or Treasury participated in any gold swaps arrangements? The Federal Reserve does not own any gold at all. We have not owned gold since 1934.
They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago.
Ow! Did you just spank me?
They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club and you ain't in it. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue, these are people of modest means, continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
American dream.
We must expose it.
With this huge debate, this huge fight about whether or not our civil liberties are being taken away from us. What are your thoughts on?
Well, I think if you looked at the record of laws which have been passed in the last 30 to 40 years, there's a thing called social hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
Social hysteria is whipped up generally by the media. Crime, in Nixon's time, crime was the big social hysteria issue. There's too much crime, they're coddling, the courts are coddling the criminals, we have tougher laws. So a lot of civil liberties went away in terms of the rights of criminals and the rights of the accused and people going on trial. These were limited, they were cut down. These rights which are guaranteed by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Another social hysteria, drugs. The drug thing happened, same thing. Big flow of drugs, we're going to fight the drugs, we need newer, tougher laws, we need draconian sentences, we need to be able to go into houses, we need to be able to do this, we have reasonable, all of these shortcuts have resulted in less liberties because of social hysteria. The media whips up the frenzy. People get all excited. Mm-hmm. The legislature passes it, the president, the executive signs it, and the judges, then the judicial branch okays it sometime later when it gets to them. Mm-hmm. And what has happened is you have less freedom, less liberties, less civil liberties, less rights. And the third social hysteria is terrorism. That was whipped up. Now it's a little more cause there. You look at the 9/11; it's a very dramatic event. Mm-hmm. But that too has been used with this Patriot Act to reduce our liberties. They say, well, if you have nothing to hide, what are you worried about? You know that whole argument. Oh, yeah.
They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays,
wipe away the fake tear. Wipe your tear. Fake tear. Good job.
It's just, listen, this country is owned by the ownership class. They do pretty much what they want.
Basically, what we're talking about right now is the Illuminati, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to tell you what it means to me. The name Illuminati means the enlightened ones. You know something that somebody else doesn't know. Those people in those positions of power control and manipulate situations into their favor for their own agenda. Laws being changed. Mostly their agenda is population control, mind control. You're being manipulated. We're all being manipulated, you know what I'm saying? You learn that they infiltrate groups in key positions in those groups so they can control the decision making to move things, to move with their agenda, to control the mass popular opinion and to control.
Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government does not give a fuck about them. Government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It simply doesn't give a fuck about you. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing, keeping it and expanding it wherever possible. One group trying to control another group. In other words, business as usual in America. Now, if you think you do have rights, one last assignment for you. Next time you're at the computer, get on the internet, go to Wikipedia. When you get to Wikipedia, in the search field for Wikipedia, I want you to type in Japanese Americans 1942, and you'll find out all about your precious fucking rights, okay? In 1942, there were 110,000 Japanese American citizens and good standing, law-abiding people who were thrown into internment camps simply because their parents were born in the wrong country. That's all they did wrong. They had no right to a lawyer, no right to a fair trial, no right to a jury of their peers, no right to due process of any kind. The only right they had, right this way.
Get your shot or get on the bus. That's what's coming.
Into the internment camps. Just when these American citizens needed their rights the most, their government took them away. And rights aren't rights if someone can take them away.
No, somebody's got to step up, all right? Just, guys, we're fucking idiots. What are we doing? Why are we working so hard and then giving it all away?
I like pain.
Take a trick on my tray! I'll stand at attention and sick fucking hair!
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
We're gaining back the freedoms that the forefathers assured us through technology, and we can't allow these freedoms to be taken away. I will put my body on the altar of liberty again and again and again.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.